Karen's campaign headquarters was her dining room table, covered with spreadsheets, voter lists, and a growing collection of energy drinks. She'd barely slept in 3 days, driven by a mixture of caffeine and pure spite. If they want to play dirty, she muttered, highlighting another name on her voter registration list, I'll show them dirty. Her first move was brilliant in its simplicity. She'd discovered that the Hendersons' pool renovation from 2 years ago had never been properly inspected. The permits were filed, but the final inspection had somehow been missed. A simple phone call to the city building department would fix that oversight. The knock on their door came at 7 a.m. sharp. Karen watched from her window as a confused Mike Henderson spoke with the city inspector, both men gesturing toward the pool. She couldn't hear the conversation, but she didn't need to. The cease and use order spoke for itself. Her phone buzzed with angry messages from the neighborhood chat, but Karen was already on to her next target. The Johnsons' artistic garden gnome wasn't just an eyesore, it was technically a structure that violated the HOA's height restrictions. And the Patel's beautiful herb garden, clearly a commercial operation, given how many neighbors they shared vegetables with. By Thursday, Karen had filed formal complaints against 12 different households. The neighborhood was in chaos, and she was loving every minute of it. You've lost your mind, Susan Martinez said, cornering her at the grocery store. This isn't about the rules anymore. This is about revenge. This is about justice. Karen replied, not looking up from her shopping list. These people wanted to challenge my authority. Now they're learning what that authority actually means. You're destroying the neighborhood you claim to love. I'm saving it from people who don't deserve it. But Karen's satisfaction was short-lived. By Friday morning, something had shifted. The angry messages in the group chat had been replaced by something worse: organization. The neighbors were fighting back, and they were fighting smart. It started with the Hendersons' pool party, the same party that had started everything. Only this time, it wasn't just a birthday celebration. It was a community fundraiser for the local food bank, complete with proper permits and city approval. Karen watched from her window as cars filled the street. Neighbors she'd never seen before joined the party, and local news crews arrived to cover the Neighborhood Unity event. The reporter, a perky blonde with perfect teeth, was interviewing Sarah Henderson about overcoming adversity through community spirit. Karen turned up the volume on her TV. Some people tried to divide us, Sarah was saying, but instead of tearing us apart, their actions brought us closer together. We realized we have something special here. Neighbors who care about each other. Karen's doorbell rang. She opened it to find Robert Chen, holding an official-looking envelope. What's this? Cease and desist order. The HOA board voted unanimously. Your harassment campaign ends now, or will be forced to take legal action. Karen's laugh was bitter. Legal action. I am the HOA president. I am the HOA. Not anymore. The election is Sunday, and Karen. Robert's voice was sad rather than angry. Nobody's going to vote for you. Not after this. As he walked away, Karen clutched the envelope, her hands shaking. Through her window, she could see the celebration continuing, hear the laughter and music. The neighborhood she tried to perfect was thriving without her. But Karen Whitmore wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. If she couldn't rule through authority, she'd rule through fear. And she knew exactly how to make that happen. Sunday's election was going to be very interesting indeed. The community center felt different that Tuesday evening. Karen arrived 15 minutes early. As always, her leather portfolio stuffed with photos, bylaw citations, and a meticulously prepared presentation. She'd even printed color copies of the violations. Professional quality, naturally. But something was wrong. The usual handful of board residents had been replaced by a packed room. Every seat was filled, and people lined the walls. Karen recognized faces from the Henderson party, but there were others too. The Johnsons from Oak Street, the elderly Patels who never spoke at meetings, even the mysterious widower from the corner house. Well, she said, settling into her seat at the board table, I'm pleased to see such civic engagement. Though I suspect you're all here about the Henderson violation. Board President Robert Chen cleared his throat. Actually, Karen, There's been a development. We've received some complaints about your enforcement methods. Karen's laugh was sharp. Complaints? For doing my job? For maintaining property values? 17 complaints. Actually, board member Susan Martinez said quietly, sliding a folder across the table. All filed yesterday. Karen's confident smile faltered as she opened the folder. Page after page of grievances, each one more ridiculous than the last. The Johnsons claimed harassment over their garden gnome. The Patels complained about her aggressive inspections of their driveway. Even old Mr. Kowalski had filed a formal complaint about her unauthorized photography of his garbage bins. This is absurd, Karen sputtered. These people are just angry because I held them accountable. Are you saying you didn't take photos of the Kowalski residence without permission? Robert asked. I was documenting violations. And you didn't tell Mrs. Chen that her rose bushes were an eyesore that belongs in a trailer park. Karen's face burned. That's taken out of context. What about threatening to fine the Hendersons for their daughter's birthday party? Susan interrupted. A 7-year-old's birthday party, Karen. The room erupted in murmurs. Karen stood, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to sit here and listen to this character assassination. I've done nothing but protect this neighborhood's standards. By making everyone miserable, Mike Henderson stood up in the back row. By measuring our grass with a ruler, by timing how long our garbage cans stay out. By acting like you own the entire neighborhood, Sarah Henderson added, her voice shaking with controlled anger. My daughter asked me why the mean lady wanted to stop her party. What was I supposed to tell her? Karen's hands trembled as she gathered her papers. I am the HOA president. I am the reason this neighborhood maintains its value. Without me, this place would be chaos. Actually, Robert said softly, that's another issue we need to discuss. There's been a petition to call for new elections. We have the required signatures. The folder hit the table with a thud as Karen's jaw dropped. You can't be serious. 37 signatures, Susan confirmed. More than enough to trigger an emergency election. Karen looked around the room, seeing nothing but hostile faces and crossed arms. These people, her neighbors, her community, had turned against her. After everything she'd done for them. After all her sacrifice. Fine, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But don't come crying to me when your property values plummet and this place turns into a slum. As she walked toward the exit, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. But just as she reached the door, Robert's voice stopped her. Karen, the election is scheduled for next week. You can still run, if you want. She turned back, her smile cold and calculated. Oh, I'll be running. And when I win, you'll all remember why you need me. The door slammed behind her, but Karen was already planning her comeback. They had no idea what she was capable of. Karen Whitmore stood in her pristine kitchen, clutching her phone so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Through her window, she could see the Henderson family's backyard, a chaotic symphony of splashing, laughter, and what could only be described as unauthorized revelry. Children cannonballed into the pool while adults lounged on inflatable flamingos, beer cans glinting in the afternoon sun. This is a direct violation of Section 4.27 of the HOA bylaws, she muttered, already pulling up the neighborhood group chat. Her fingers flew across the screen. OGNT, noise ordinance violation at 1247 Maple Lane. Excessive gatherings without proper permits. This ends, Teodier. The responses came flooding in, but not the supportive chorus she'd expected. Instead, laughing emojis and lighten-up Karen filled her screen. Her face flushed crimson. That's MFS. Will you HIT more to you people? She typed furiously. Karen had been the self-appointed guardian of Willowbrook Estates for 3 years, ever since moving in after her divorce. The HOA presidency had been her salvation, a chance to create the perfect neighborhood she'd always dreamed of. Order, rules, respect. She marched outside, her heels clicking against the sidewalk like a metronome counting down to battle. The Hendersons' gate stood wide open, practically mocking her authority. A water balloon sailed over the fence, splashing near her feet. Excuse me, she bellowed, pushing through the gate. This is completely unacceptable. The music died. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward her. Mike Henderson, still holding a spatula covered in barbecue sauce, looked genuinely confused. Karen, what's wrong? It's Mrs. Whitmore. And what's wrong is this circus you're running. Do you have permits for this gathering? Are you aware of the noise restrictions? The pool safety regulations for this many people? Mike's wife Sarah stepped forward, her smile strained. Karen, it's just a birthday party for Emma. She's turning 7. I don't care if she's turning 70. Rules are rules. Karen pulled out her phone, snapping photos of the crowd, the decorations, the slightly too loud speaker. This is going straight to the HOA board. A murmur rippled through the guests. Someone laughed, actually laughed, and Karen's vision went red. You think this is funny? Wait until you see the fines. She spun on her heel, her voice carrying across the yard. Party's over, people. Clean up this mess before I call the authorities. As she stormed back to her house, Karen missed the look that passed between the neighbors. She missed the way conversations resumed in hushed, determined tones. She missed the moment when her perfect neighborhood began to plot against her. But she'd find out soon enough. The HOA board meeting was tomorrow night, and Karen was about to learn that sometimes the rules cut both ways. Sunday arrived with the kind of perfect weather that made Karen's defeat feel even more bitter. She stood at her kitchen window, watching neighbors stream toward the community center, chatting and laughing like they were heading to a festival, instead of an election that would determine her fate. At 6 p.m., she finally left her house. The voting had been going on all day, and she'd been conspicuously absent. Let them wonder. Let them think she'd given up. The community center was packed again, but this time the energy was different. Celebratory. Hopeful. Karen slipped in through the back door, her arrival barely noticed among the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Chen announced from the front of the room, we have the results of the HOA presidential election. The room fell silent. Karen held her breath. By a vote of 127-3, the new president of the Willowbrook Estates HOA is Sarah Henderson. The room erupted in cheers. Karen felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. 3 votes. 3 people in the entire neighborhood had supported her. She scanned the crowd, wondering who they were, but everyone was hugging Sarah, shaking her hand, patting her on the back. Sarah stepped up to the microphone, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. Thank you all for this incredible honor. I know the past few weeks have been difficult, but I believe we've learned something important about what kind of community we want to be. Karen pushed through the crowd, her face burning with humiliation and rage. She had to get out of there before she said something she'd regret. But as she reached the door, Sarah's voice stopped her. I want to address the elephant in the room. Karen Whitmore has been a part of this neighborhood for 3 years. Yes, we've had our differences. Yes, some of her methods were problematic. But underneath all that, she did care about this place. She wanted it to be special. Karen turned back, confused by the unexpected grace. That's why I'm extending an olive branch. Karen, if you're here, I'd like to offer you the position of compliance coordinator. We need someone who knows the rules, who pays attention to details, someone who cares about maintaining our standards. The position comes with clear guidelines and community oversight, but it would let you stay involved in a positive way. The room was silent. Every eye was on Karen. She could feel the weight of their stares. The mix of curiosity and skepticism. Part of her wanted to accept, to take the gracious defeat, and try to rebuild her reputation. But Karen Whitmore had never been gracious in defeat. Keep your pity position, she said, her voice carrying across the silent room. You people have no idea what you've done. No idea what's coming. She pushed through the door and walked to her car, her heels clicking against the pavement like a countdown. Behind her, she could hear the celebration resuming, the laughter and conversation flowing like water around a stone. At home, Karen sat in her darkened living room, staring at the boxes she'd been packing all week. The for sale sign would go up tomorrow. She was leaving Willowbrook Estates, but she wasn't leaving empty-handed. On her phone, she scrolled through real estate listings in a neighborhood across town. Maple Heights. a newer development with strict HOA covenants and a board position opening up next month. The current president was getting old, ready to step down. Karen smiled for the first time in weeks. Maple Heights had no idea what was coming their way. After all, she'd learned so much from her mistakes here at Willowbrook. Next time, she'd be smarter. Next time, she'd be ready. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning.